most sophisticated manage their assets is not the way the traditional mom and pop homeowner does, or the person who's just trying to create some financial freedom and wealth creation, right? Like optimizing every aspect of real estate ownership is what Ownwell is trying to bring. And yeah, that's the mission we're on, to help as many people as we can.
Welcome to Truly Passive Income. I'm Neil Henderson.
And I'm Clint Harris. And today's guest is Colton Pace. He's the co-founder and CEO of Ownwell. With a background in managing billions in real estate and venture capital, Colton has created a platform that helps homeowners and investors reduce property expenses, starting with taxes. He took what he learned working for Billionaires and built a tech-enabled service that levels the playing field for everyday property owners. Colton, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Absolutely. Excited to have you here. Thanks for that. We just mentioned before the recording that a lot of what we focus on is passive investing and syndication offerings. But the reality is most of our listeners either started off as active real estate investors and often still are. Neil and I both invest actively and passively. A lot of weight is on syndication, but we each have multiple rental properties. And so I'm pretty interested in digging into this specifically because Neil and I both had tax assessments recently.
Ouch.
That we're navigating. So kind of jumped off the page at us. But before we get started, why don't you tell listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got started, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Well, Ownwell is my company. Started 5 years ago, but prior to that, I was in asset management. So I worked for one client who was a wealthy billionaire that had started a tech company prior and helped them manage their assets. And that ranged from multifamily apartment complexes to 28 residences across the country to, a massive public book, fund of funds, lots of different asset classes, and learned truly how the most sophisticated investors manage and organize all their expenses and assets. And that's really what brought to me founding Ownwell. The way the most sophisticated manage their assets is not the way the traditional mom and pop homeowner does, or the accidental landlord does, or the person who's just trying to create some financial freedom and wealth creation, right? Like optimizing every aspect of real estate ownership is what Ownwell is trying to bring. And yeah, that's the mission we're on, to help as many people as we can.
I love that. So why starting with taxes? I would imagine that there's some low-hanging fruit there. Everybody's got taxes. Everybody hates them. It's a very, they throw out a number of what they say your property's worth. You try to fight back. They've got the power. So it seems like some low-hanging fruit there. But tell me why taxes, why you started there.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you nailed it. The real estate, largest asset class in the world, largest item on a household's balance sheet, if you think of it that way, largest expense every single month. And so massive problem. It should be what we're looking at, not the 401k or the Robinhood account, because I'm 10 times levered in my house and it's worth 5 times the amount. And so how do we help people with that asset? Property taxes, second largest expense associated with almost all real estate after the loan. And 95% of people don't even push back. And so, Clint, to your point, we get the assessment, we push back. There's only 5% of people. 95% of people do nothing. They just pay that tax bill, no questions asked. They don't dig into the whole process. They don't understand tax assessments versus market value assessments. And so low-hanging fruit, but then also a reoccurring touch point. You get that tax assessment every, depending on your geography, every couple of years, every year, and you get a new tax bill every year. And so, you may not change your insurance every year. You don't refi every year. You have to deal with your taxes every single year. And so we wanted to start with where we could build a relationship with our clients and consumers over an extended period of time to give them smart recommendations surrounding lots of things associated with their home. And so massive problem, underpenetrated, in that most people don't know. It's an education awareness problem for us. And then reoccurring. We get to help people over and over again.
I love that. One of the things about taxes that you said 95%. I didn't know that number. That's amazing. But I'm honestly not surprised, because the reality is, if that tax bill, it's like everybody's just like death and taxes. They're happening. It's coming for me. I can't do anything about it. But the reality is, if the tax bill is close to what you paid the year before or the previous few years before, maybe it's got a little bit of creep there and it's slowly going up. But if it's not enough to really change my life, people just pay it and don't think about it instead of fighting back. It's only when you get that big jump that you're like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. But the reality is, if you're turning up, the temperature a little bit at a time, most people don't do anything to push back on that. So I think you make a good point that this should be an action step of, this is something you can push off or push on back against aggressively, and you should. And a lot of times it's hard to do that, and you can't make it automatic. Neil and I both live in New Hanover County, Wilmington, North Carolina, and we had a 73% increase in our tax assessment. And so luckily, my wife is a realtor. So like we're running the CMAs. You have the number come in at one value, you fight back, and we get the comparative market analysis that comes in $300,000 or $400,000 less. Fight, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. A lot of people are either lazy, or a lot of elderly people are just like, well, that's just the way the world's going, and kind of let it go. Or other people that don't have that huge assessment are like, well, it's close to what it was last year. That's just the rate of inflation. But the reality is what you're talking about is looking at those recurring bills and pushing back on it constantly. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the corporations, Fortune 1000 and the most wealthy properties in most counties appeal every single year or every chance they can. And so over time, the people who aren't appealing are actually footing more and more of the property tax bill. And so you can imagine like the school still needs to get funded. So this is why tax rates keep going up. A portion of that is why tax assessments on the skyscrapers go down because they're litigated. They're fought every single year. And then the homeowners don't do anything. They just, exactly to your point, it's a bill from the government. We're not trained to fight the government on a bill that we receive from them. And so it's a little counterintuitive to property taxes have to be fair. And in some jurisdictions, tax code has no connection to actual fair market value. So like you could be a significant portion below what you would actually sell the home for, but still be overassessed just based on the tax code. And if you don't know these specific rules, you don't know to even look for that. And so you just pay that bill. And so that's where Ownwell comes in to try and help out.
Well, and my suspicion, especially, here in New Hanover County, is they're sort of counting on most people are not going to fight it. So they maybe went higher than they thought they could get because they know, hey, most people are probably not going to fight it. And even the ones who do, we just gave ourselves a cushion for how much we need to come down.
I don't know if like there's that whole game theory at play, but they definitely have some, right? Like their mandate is to assess things at fair market value, but then they also have to increase assessments to what they believe is fair market value, and they're audited by the state. And so if some are going to be fought down below, they need to put some high. And so they're definitely trying to find like the range to get to actual values, or else they get audited by the state comptroller or board of revenue if they don't push aggressive enough.
It kind of reminds me of, I had a background of 16 years in medical sales, and it was like the same thing that we saw there. You sell a pacemaker or defibrillator, and the hospital is going to charge the insurance company, and the insurance company goes, well, we're going to pay half that amount. And so the hospital goes, okay, no problem. Well, moving forward, we're going to charge double that amount just because we know you're going to pay 50%. And you know who takes it on the chin is the uninsured or the people paying cash. They get stuck with that astronomical bill, and it's crazy, right? So the reality is maybe their price increases, their tax increases are shooting up. Some people are going to fight back, but it's the ones that don't that are really the victims there. And the reality is we're in real estate, and with your background, we all certainly know there is a difference in market value and appraised value, right? Depending on the interest rates or the cap rates at the time, like an appraised value might come in on a certain property and it might sell for $100,000 or $200,000 more or $100,000 or $200,000 less, depending on what's going on. But the reality is there's a difference in the value of market value, appraised value, and then the tax value on the property. They're very different numbers, and you're going to get different values on that. And a lot of people don't understand that those can be, I don't want to say manipulated, but they can be argued, right? And that's to kind of land where you want to. So explain the process to me in terms of, the only thing I know is that an appraised value comes in at $1 million and you run a comparative market analysis to say that it's worth 700, and then you turn it in and you see what they say. But how do billionaires go about this process?
Yeah. Totally depends by geography and depends on the type of property. And so the way you value real estate, of course, you guys know, is dependent upon like if it's an income approach, if it's this type of property, we're going to look at cap rates, we're going to look at the income it's generating or the income it could generate. And then for homes, it's typically comparative market analysis or cost replacement studies or things like that. And so what happens, you get that $1 million number that comes out. And like the simple homeowner or property owner might go to Zillow and they're like, oh, the number's 1.2 on Zillow. I'm good. But in actuality, there's different things in the tax code. Like maybe your tax assessment should be fair to your neighbors. and your neighbor's is at 800,000, you have a very similar house to your neighbor, right? Like that's not equitable taxation. And so there's different aspects beyond just checking that fair market value. And once you filed that evidence packet, on the Billionaire side, there's a conversation for sure. Like they're doing it on high value properties, but for single homeowners or Airbnb owners or accidental landlords or even self-storage facilities like we deal with all the time at Ownwell, you go in and they basically usually have some pushback. They're either, we're sticking to our value, we believe this is right, or you exchange evidence. It's a quasi-legal process. And then eventually goes to a hearing. For the most valuable properties, it always goes to litigation. And so this is a big enough number for a lot of people and the big buildings and cities that, right, they're willing to litigate over it. And they'll take it to the fullest extent of the law, and we'll go to arbitration, we'll go to mediation. We have local tax experts in every jurisdiction that know how to win in Miami, because how you win in Miami is not how you win in Atlanta. It's not how you win in Dallas, right? And so tax code's different. The way it's approached is different, and the evidence that's admissible is different. But lots to be considered as you take it to the fullest extent, and people are paying, it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, depending on the property that are at stake here.
So my understanding with Ownwell is that you've automated a lot of what used to be the domain of pretty high-priced attorneys and tax consultants. First, is that the case? And then what tech or process was the hardest to build and why?
Yeah. Dealing with the government is difficult. And so, like I mentioned before,
would have never thought that.
It's like if you tried to automate the DMV a little bit, but we're working with tax assessors in that, right? We have tens of thousands of properties that we're working with in certain counties, and I'm not going to drop a pallet of paperwork off, right? I have to get them to say like, okay, we'll take emails, or okay, we'll take an FTP drop if they'll do that. Usually it turns into emails, or we've automated portions of mail in just that their pipe is set. This is how they deal with paperwork, and this is how it's done. And so we've automated a lot of the operations and the paperwork and the filing and filling out the right forms and tracking the deadlines. We have like a Domino's pizza-like tracker of appeal status, right? We've automated that piece, but at the end of the day, we have to have local tax experts to talk to the government, to attend these hearings, and we have that in every market. So we've automated what we call like the operations and the filing and the making sure we get authorization for our clients on time, the evidence collection, a lot of the valuation at the beginning is automated, but then the tax expert comes in and optimizes it for the best possible case. And then that lets us pass on actually savings to our clients. So like you said before, tax consultants and attorneys ruled this space, and they charge hundreds, if not thousands an hour in some cases, and charge a 50% contingency fee on what they save you. We only charge a contingency fee, and we charge 25 to 35% of what we save you. If we don't save you a dime, we'll never charge you anything. And so we pass on those savings and that automation to our customers.
So now you bring up something that I want to dig into a little bit, get some understanding here, because the contingency fee model is very interesting to me. From a sales standpoint, if you have a great value proposition and you know you're bringing value to the table, it's beautiful because your consumers all want to know, okay, Colton, it sounds great, but how much does it cost, right? What's the monthly payment? Is it a membership? How does it work? The contingency fee model is beautiful because it's like, look, we're going to do the work for you. Whatever we save you, we're partners on this together. We'll take a percentage of that. You get the rest. So it's no risk for the consumer, right? Whatever they win, you're going to get a piece of that. But the only way you're getting paid is if they're getting paid, right? So your interests are aligned and it's a win-win. So I love that. If the margins are thin or you guys are doing a lot of work for a little bit of savings, the business model is not going to survive. So on average, you have to have a really strong value proposition, and you have to have as low a fixed overhead for that process as you can have, because you not only have to pay all those people going to those hearings, you got to turn a profit too, right? I'm sure that's a collective bargaining of getting those prices down as low as you can in those counties where you have a lot of things going on, but also making sure that you're really maximizing the savings for the clients, because that's where your percentage comes in, and you have to be able to turn a profit for yourself as well. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's very low barrier of objection from those consumers. But how do you go about, like, it also brings up the question of, I would guess that your model is not to go after 1 million residential homeowners that are each going to save a little bit of money on their taxes, because you're going to make tens of dollars, Colton, right? You know what I mean? Like you're going after the bigger fish with the bigger properties, and Airbnb is a great place to start. The people that have a dozen or more, but the idea is that you want to scale to larger facilities, and with those larger facilities, I have no doubt it's going to be increased fixed overhead costs for all those hearings and the litigation. So tell me where you're going. Is this kind of the grassroots model and you're rolling it up to something bigger? And how do you control some of those fixed overhead costs?
Yeah, amazing question. And I love this because it lets me focus on the mission of Ownwell, right? Like I used to work for one of the most wealthy individual. How do we bring the tools, tips, resources, access to all real estate owners? Mobile home, right? A small 1-bedroom, 1-bath out in the country, rural. No one's advertising to them. No one's there to help them, right? Like no attorney is going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And so part of our mission from the beginning is like, we do not discriminate. We do not turn away clients. We have properties on the platform that are $50,000. We have tons of mobile home customers. We have tons of single family homes. They have one property. We want to help them as much as we want to help everybody else. And that's where the automation comes in. If we had not automated, then we wouldn't be able to serve them. That said, it's still unprofitable for us. And so a $100,000 home is rarely profitable for us. The key piece is like, look, we're on a mission to help everybody. And for that reason, some of our larger clients like that, right? Like we also have clients who have tens of thousands of homes. And so those individuals in the commercial real estate we represent are somewhat subsidizing our ability to help others. And so I love this. And that part of the whole reason all of us come to work today is the impact we can make in, yes, we're going to reduce that large apartment complex, $100 million apartment complex, and make a bunch of money. And our margins will be very healthy on that building. But then we're going to use some of that to give back to the customers who are out there who have never protested or appealed or grieved to their property taxes before, because of the automation and because we have the team there doing it all at once. And so, yeah, we definitely do some things that aren't scalable to help more and more customers. But we love that we're aligned from a contingency fee basis. I totally agree with all that you said.
Let me ask you a question. Neil and I and our other two general partners and Nomad Capital, the group that we work with, we buy old vacant big box retail buildings, Kmart's, textile mills, boot factories, whatever. We're going to buy a building for like $2 to $3 million. We're going to put $2 to $3 million in it. And it's a stabilized, climate controlled self-storage facility. It takes a year to build it out, several years to fill it up. But typically they're appraising somewhere in the $12 to $15 million range. Some are closer to 10, some are closer to the 17. But like on a property like that, after it's stabilized in full, let's say it's a smaller facility, it's appraising for $10 million. What kind of savings are you bringing to the table? That's a very broad question, but you mentioned self-storage. Like what kind of savings are we talking about?
Yeah. On average, we save clients a little bit over 5% on their tax bill every year. And so that's broad strokes. It's actually a lot higher for self-storage like facilities, especially if we can point to, look, you guys bought it for 2, 3, you put 2, 3 in it, cost of replacement is this. Like that will be our argument, right? That's going to drive to the lowest number. You can use lots of different methodologies for value in real estate. They're going to say, look, this place down the road sold for this cap rate and this amount, right? Like we're going to have to go back and forth on that, but we're going to push for uniquely our business. We push for the lowest value possible that we can indicate for your real, especially if you have vacancy or you haven't filled it up yet, right? We're going to lean into all that. And so 5% is usually what you can expect from an average type of building. But on commercial and self-storage, I know we're actually doing better. We have certain clients who say 20, 30% a year.
Well, and I want to hit home a point that a lot of people don't think about is when you take a small savings in, even at 5%, and shave that, add that back into the NOI, and then divide that by a cap rate, you're talking a significant value proposition. I mean, I don't know who was we interviewed? Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith. I'll tell the
Elevation.
story.
Yeah.
I share this story quite a bit and I'll pass it back to you.
Go for it.
He takes his kids to the Walmart parking lot, or did this at least once, and had them walk around until they could find $1. And like, come on, Dad, we don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. But they're finding pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. When they pick them up and they find $1, he explains to them that the real lesson is that if you have a commercial real estate property and you can find a way to save $1 a month at a 5 cap, that creates a valuation on the property of an additional $240 on the property. And that's value that you immediately, $1 a month is $12 a year, but at a 5 cap, that increases the value of the property by $240. So you now extrapolate that by a couple thousand. It's significant. It's $250,000, $500,000, $1 million worth of value that you can change overnight that you can immediately tap into in terms of refinance. So I think that's your point, is that
Right.
It's not exactly about the fixed expenses of the taxes or the 5%. Whatever you save increases your net operating income, and that hits a multiplier on the cap rate and drastically increases the value of the property. So that 5% on the year of or before an exit could really swing things significantly higher than just the amount of taxes that you're saving when it hits that cap rate multiplier.
Love it. Totally agree, guys. Yeah, and I've even seen on some listings, like, just got tax assessment reduced to blank. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to show the value of, we just reduced this future expense for you for several years, and that the value that brings into a new transaction.
I love that you're focusing on a fixed expense. You're making a fixed expense unfixed, right? You're changing something that is usually a line item where you're like, well, that's just what it is. The water bill's the water bill. The taxes are the taxes. Let's move on. Maybe we can put low flow shower heads in. That's about all we can change. But the reality is you're taking what traditionally has been considered a fixed expense because nobody knows how to push back against that 800-pound gorilla in the room called the IRS, and you're creating opportunity there. I don't want to pigeonhole you just with taxes. I think that that's obviously a great place to start, but obviously you've got vision of taking this a lot broader. So how do you take this concept of the billionaire mentality, and you're basically taking, the Wall Street mentality, and you're bringing it to Main Street, and you're rolling it out among these people? So how are you focusing on that? Are you focusing on, like, we can all focus on walking through the house and turning your lights off to try to save energy, but are you focused more on like collective bargaining? How does that work? And what's your vision for how Ownwell rolls out to be among the people and for the people?
Yeah. Thanks for asking the question. Yeah, we're super excited about other products beyond tax. Tax is where we started just because massive opportunity, like we discussed earlier, but we really break it up into 5 huge expenses associated with real estate that I think we can make an impact on all of them. Your loan. We have a home equity line of credit product. We have people who can help you get a loan to buy a new property. We have refinance products. Every once in a while, it seems past couple of months, there's an opportunity if your loan's recent. Property taxes, we got you covered on filing exemptions, doing your property tax bill, paying your taxes. People who have tens of properties across the country, like, it's difficult to know when it's due. There's lots of penalties. Sometimes there's early payment discounts. We'll make sure you take advantage of that. On the insurance side of things, people should reshop their insurance. We like to call it a monitoring program, both for our taxes and insurance. We're going to monitor your premium. We're going to, at renewals especially, really look, but quarterly, we check and look at different insurance offerings and make sure that there's not a better offering out there for you, whether it's landlord insurance or, your own home or your rental property and dwelling policies. We can help make sure you shouldn't just go and sign up for State Farm and then forget about it. Rates and insurance and the underlying risk is constantly changing. 4th, utilities. Sorry, I got the laundry list here, but there's a lot of expenses associated with real estate. Utilities in not regulated areas, we can help you switch to the best electricity provider. And so we're helping our customers save, $400, $500 a year in making sure that they're paying the lowest price possible for electricity. Electricity is electricity, guys. And then last, maintenance. We have local providers that are partners with the company, and people on staff, what we call Ownwell concierge, to actually give you advice and help you, direct you in the right direction for that 5th expense. And so we want to really help people own their home well. It's in the name, right? Across all expenses associated with real estate. These are the biggest things you're going to pay for throughout the year. And every expense and dollar counts, as you guys were saying.
And are those products you've already rolled out, or they're in the works?
Yeah, so we're rolling out geo by geo, but insurance is very live. Electricity is very live. Maintenance is, I would say, like beta. In Texas, we're very much live in New York and Georgia. And then the HELOC and refi product, we've helped a few customers now, but are developing our partner network in different geographies.
So Ownwell is active in 7 states right now?
So we're actually active in 29, but we appeal properties in 7 states. And so that's Texas, Florida, Georgia, New York, Washington State, Illinois, and California.
When is North Carolina getting on the list?
Soon. If I had $1 for every time someone asked me about North Carolina, I'd have $1,000.
Well, let me ask you this. What makes a state attractive for you or is a barrier to entry for you?
One thing that's hard about North Carolina is the reassessment cycle is every 4 years. And so really you should take action every 4 years. And so if I've got a person there full time to take action, tough to have them twiddling thumbs for 3 years. And so we work with partner networks, and that's one thing that makes it hard to open up in North Carolina. But every 4 years, there's a huge opportunity. So really reoccurring new assessments every year is one thing we look at first and foremost. High taxes, of course. Wyoming's never going to be a good market. Property taxes are dirt cheap. And then quickly growing values in school districts. And as you can imagine, where things have to be funded, property taxes are higher. So Florida, Texas, Georgia, a lot of the Sun Belt. North Carolina is a great market. We just need to figure out how to make the 4-year assessments work.
Let me ask you about volatility in the insurance market, and is that creating opportunity? I mean, so the articles are coming out weekly right now about, especially people from the Northeast that moved down to Florida, got condos. They bought a condo for $370,000, $400,000, whatever. And next thing you know, the insurance cost is what's made it prohibitive. And some of the issues that have happened with condo buildings. A lot of those properties are now uninsurable if you have a mortgage on them. So people are either faced to pay off the mortgage and not have insurance, or liquidate the property. And now you've got a rush of them coming onto the market, and that's driving down some of the prices there. So when I look at insurance, to me, that it creates some shaky ground there. And I'm worried about what that's going to do, especially in the coastal areas, like east of I-95 up and down the coast. Like, what does that look like as we go through some, global challenges and economic headwinds? So what is that? You probably have put a lot more thought into this than I have. So what do you see in that market? And is that creating opportunity for you?
Yeah. Our business, we like to say volatility is good for business, but bad for our customers. There's more opportunity to help our customers when they're feeling the pain. But of course, no one wants to feel the pain. And so we have a ton of customers in Florida and Southeast Texas where, they're getting canceled at their renewal date, and they're looking for options. And that's where staying really boots on the ground, close to it. I'm a licensed insurance agent in that you basically have to know which providers to go to and which geography. And there's certain people who are there to help those types of clients. And I know that we use Mercury Insurance a ton in the Houston area. We've tried Kin, which is a newer provider in Florida for people who can't find coverage, right? You almost want the personalized knowledge and make sure that your insurance broker or agent has the right appointments, because there'll be a lot of in more risky areas, people are just leaving and they're not writing any new policies. And so staying on top of some of the new insurance providers that are coming in, new carriers, new options, it's absolutely a terrifying thing to not be able to find insurance, especially as you're required to. And so we try and make that as easy as possible. And again, monitor is the way we think about it. You have a new insurance policy, we'll know whether or not they're going to renew you or not. And we'll know whether or not there's other options for you and what that might look like as you come around, so you can help budget for the next cycle. But yeah.
When do you predict you'll be in all 50 states?
I think we'll have products in all 50 states by the end of the year. Like insurance product, for example, it's much easier to roll out than a tax appeal product. And so getting larger carrier appointments for our insurance efforts across different geographies. And really it's finding real estate's so local that we have to find and expand the team to provide the best experience for our customers. If I don't want to drop into a market and provide a subpar experience because the insurance broker down the street knows way better than I do what it's like in Salt Lake City. And so rolling that out and making sure we're doing the right thing by our customers and providing the best recommendation possible is what slows us down. But I do think some of our digital products will be live in 50 states by the end of the year.
Got it. So we're kind of rounding third here and headed towards the home stretch. But I want to ask one question before I get to the last couple is what does this process look like for, say it's one of our listeners that has a dozen Airbnb properties or whatever it may be. They reach out to you and they're interested in engaging this process in a state where you guys do work on the tax level, on the insurance level, whatever. Is it a portal? What does the entire process look like when someone engages with you from beginning to end?
Yeah. So we're set up for, like I said, customers with one property, customers with 10,000 properties. Of course, if you have 10,000 properties, you should probably email us for us to help you onboard and get all your properties in a row. But let's say you have 10, you can reach out to our client success or sales support team to help you get onboarded, or you could legitimately go in and upload an Excel spreadsheet list online or enter the addresses one by one. We will automatically pull all the information necessary for you to authorize us to talk to the tax assessor on your behalf. Then you kind of turn on whatever services you want for those properties, whether it's insurance monitoring or mortgage monitoring or utility monitoring. You go through and you'll have a dashboard that you can put out reports from that'll show you your new assessments. Oftentimes we'll know your new assessment before you get the piece of mail in your mailbox. And we'll ask you for any evidence or updates along the way. We have key dates in there. It is an online portal where you can basically track all the expenses associated with your real estate. And so you can use it as much or as little as you want. The key piece to signing up is like enter your address, authorize us to act on your behalf, and then you can sit back and watch us do our thing and try and save you money.
Yeah, this feels like a strategic partnership as opposed to like a fee service, or this is something that I would imagine you probably have a really high retention rate with the people that end up partnering with you. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Outside of selling their homes, very few people cancel. There's really no reason. Like, what's the downside of?
Yeah. Again, aligned interests. You're in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. I love that. So to me, you seem obviously to be a very well-rounded individual, and that's what a lot of homeowners or property owners are looking for. Is like, you've got, I don't mean to steal the thunder from my last question, but a lot of people are in the situation where like, well, how do I deal with insurance, and how do I deal with taxes, and how do I deal with all these things? And the reality is it's you don't need to know how to do all those things. You need to know who. You need to know who you have that would be better at all those things than you are. And that's that classic book, Dan Sullivan and Ben King, Who Not How. It's a principle that I keep coming back to. And this is a situation where if you're in that position and you can find the one person that knows how to navigate all those issues, that feels like a very strategic partnership. So final question. This is one that we ask all of our guests. So this could be a book that you like, a book that you don't like. It could be a podcast, could be any source of content that you consume. But what's one book or content source that you find yourself recommending to friends and colleagues over and over?
Yeah. The one that I have most recently recommended is a book called Crucial Conversations. It's actually written by a plethora of authors, like I think 5 different people, and there's a couple different versions of it. Exactly to your point, Clint, everything's about people, about who, and having those crucial conversations, whether it's right, like how to motivate, how to interview, how to figure out how to, build a new product or sell, right? All of these are conversations. And so how to have those crucial conversations. It's a book I almost turn to like a textbook. I look through it, right? Like if I need advice for a hard performance conversation, or I'm trying to convince someone to come and join the company, right? Like all these different sources, or even talking to my wife, right? Like conversations are crucial, and preparing for them has, I think, set Ownwell apart and set me apart in my career. And that's a book I highly recommend.
Well, Colton Pace, thank you so much for sharing with us today. This was a refreshing conversation. It was sort of surprising, as we originally didn't have you on the schedule, but I'm glad you ended up here. I really enjoyed it. If any of our listeners want to dig in and find out more about you and Ownwell, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my social media of choice. But if you want to hear more about Ownwell, you can email us, you can call us, you can visit the website at ownwell.com. Lots of information there, but happy to help as many people as we can.
Awesome. Thank you, Colton. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening and watching the Truly Passive Income podcast. If you liked the show, if you think it would be useful for someone else, the greatest compliment that you could give us would be to share the episode. Leave a comment down below or leave us an honest review. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know down below. And remember, with truly passive income comes freedom of time, place, and the freedom to pursue your higher purpose.